Have you ever looked back at a decision you've made in the past that you thought was the right thing to do, but it turns out that it absolutely wasn't? Well, I've made quite a lot of these in my business career so far, and my life, of course. But there is one in particular that has costed me hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you've probably already made the same mistake yourself. This mistake, it's easy to identify, but it is so hard to avoid. And I just wanted to talk about it so that you can learn from my mistake before it's costed you the same amount that it has for me. So I started my business back at the very start of 2022. And towards the end of that first year of business, I had already crossed my first $100,000 year, which was super sick. And I was actually talking to one of my competitors who was a good friend of mine. We were both doing about $15,000 a month. And we were talking about it, how cool this is and how crazy it felt, because this was money that we both have never seen before. So it was wicked. And so that continued into 2023, where we continued to grow both our businesses until about halfway through the year, about May or June, when I, for the first time, got exposed to the idea that there were better business models out there than a content business. Content business, it's not the most scalable. It's not necessarily the easiest model to be in and to grow really fast. So back in 2023, I had a bit of an ego, and I felt I had some good confidence, like I felt like I could do anything, that I ended up indulging in the idea of starting a new venture, starting a new business. And I did. After a couple months of studying AI, and I went to start a business in that space. And yeah, I actually did get some success. I made chatbots for about $5,000, but only for a very small amount of time before it actually all started to fall apart, where due to my lack of skill in the space, when things got a bit more complicated and clients needed more substantial solutions, like I couldn't fulfill those requests. And so I ended up doing refunds, and yeah, ended up just kind of burning myself out of that business really, really quickly. And of course, as I was kind of burning out, I saw this other more traditional style of business, which is the social media marketing niche, which is very similar to content because it's kind of the same thing. You need content with ads and you kind of merge them together. In my head, sounded like a really cool idea. So I was like, well, it's also more scalable than just a content business. So I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna get rid of the AR stuff. So after about 3 or 4 months of the AR stuff, I threw it in the bin. Never again. Then I went all in on the social media the marketing agency business model. And so I did the same thing with social media agency. I had some early success. I got some mentorship and I was getting some really quick wins. I was selling a $5,800 offer and it was sweet. I was making good money until I didn't get the results that my clients were wanting. And then I gave a lot of people refunds because I didn't get them the results that they were after. And I was like, oh my God, like this isn't it. And then I was like, well, maybe this business model ain't it. And now this process of me seeing a new opportunity, it's more scalable, it's more attractive, starting it, burning out, finding a new one and repeating that process, that was happening for about 18 months, from mid-2023 to the end of last year pretty much, when I realized I was making a seriously fatal mistake in business. And so of course my content business was on the side all of this entire time, and it continued to grow the entire time, but not by a whole lot. Essentially, it just didn't really go backwards. It kind of just stayed the same, but slowly going up. And over that same 18-month period, my friend that's in the exact same space as me, doing a lot of real estate, commercial, videography content, he stayed locked in the entire time over the period that I was kind of going left, right, up, down, diagonal, all the ways, trying to find more scalable models. In that time frame, he nearly tripled his business while I hardly moved the needle. And I really only came to this realization towards the end of last year that I made a fucking serious mistake. I fell for the very thing that I didn't think I was falling for, and it's shiny object syndrome. Both of the business models that I just talked about, the AI stuff and the ad stuff, both those business models work, and both of them have multi-millionaires in those spaces. So it was totally a me problem that was due to my lack of skill set in that space that enabled me to fail. And on top of that, my inability to continue pushing through the ruts and to get through that learning curve to even become a professional in this space. I wasn't doing that because my mind would shift to another idea that I thought was easier. And it's that negative, real vicious cycle that I was in until the end of last year. Just that classic grass is always greener on the other side. So this was a really big maturing step for me in my business journey. Able to identify, after 18 months of grinding, coming back to the ground, resetting and absorbing the damage that I had done, both like financially and mentally. Like I had spent so much money on the ventures themselves, but then also missing out on the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I could have already had if I just stayed locked in with the content business, the very thing that already had momentum, that already had a positive flywheel, that was making real money. And you know what the funny thing is that when I decided to just stop chasing the shiny shit and to go back to what was already working, what was already paying my bills and affording me the lifestyle to try the other business models. Within 3 months, I added $20,000 in monthly revenue to the business. I'll leave the video up here somewhere that shows you how I did make the extra $20,000 because I go into a little bit more detail about how I exactly did it. It's actually a very achievable model for anyone to do, especially if you are a beginner. So I highly recommend watching that. So now that I'm on the other side of my big, massive, probably my biggest learning curve in business so far, and also noticing that this is not just a me thing, this is a really common thing. A lot of my personal friends, they have ideas to start a business and they really want to do business, but they don't really know what it's going to be. So they kind of see these opportunities that they look cool, the shiny object, right? They obsess over that for a couple weeks, a few weeks, and then they go, oh, that's a little bit too hard. And then they move to another one. And then they just never get out of that cycle for more reasons than just shiny object syndrome, like just the ability to just take some risk. So my advice to younger me, and if you are in an early stage of business where you haven't made this mistake yet, my advice is, doesn't matter what business model you pick. It could be AI, lawn care, car detailing, AI, videography, photography. Doesn't matter what it is, but whatever you pick, stick to it, commit to it, dedicate yourself to it. When it gets hard, push through. Or when temptation leads you astray, just stay locked in, dedicate yourself to it, and it will be unreasonable for you not to win.